All right, hello people. We're a little bit early here. I'm just getting some stuff set up, but I want to thank you for attending. And if you would, just put a 1 or a yes in the chat box and let me know that you can hear my voice, my audio. Thank you, Marlon. How are you doing? I can't hear you, Marlon. I'll go ahead and turn on your voice for just a moment here because we haven't started quite yet. And just say a quick hello. Now I should be able to hear you. How are you doing, Marlon? And I'm also, there you are, I'm coming through.
Got it? Cool. Hey,
Yep.
one of my target companies I kind of had as a backup in case I had to move to California. They just opened up an office, basically 10 minutes walking distance from my front door.
Nice.
I've been working every contact I have that knows someone or goes solar. If I can at least get an informational interview and from there.
Excellent. That's great. And did you schedule your test?
I wasn't able to do that. I mean, there were 1, 2, 3, 4 different places. They all there was no place where I could just take the test itself without taking the course. And the courses they're like in the midst of this summer break, so there are no courses scheduled right now. So I'm on all of their mailing lists, so that as soon as they start scheduling courses again, I'll hop back on in order to do that. So it was kind of frustrating. It was like, really, I can't just like take the test without taking the course. it was a little frustrating.
Yeah.
So,
Well, by moving forward with that though, you figured it out. You found out. Whereas if you would have waited, and who knows how many months would have gone by if you would not have made that decision to just go ahead and take that test. So, well, Marlon, give me just a moment here, and I've turned on the audio for. I'm going to turn off your audio, Marlon, for now. I've got Sonia. I don't know Sonia. Never had the opportunity to work with Sonia. How are you doing today, Sonia? I've turned on your audio. I don't know if you've got a device that you can chat with, but you should be able to hear me. If not, go ahead and put a message in the chat box. Hi, Sandy. And okay, so I'm not hearing anything from Sonia. She may not be there. Vivian, how are you, Vivian? I haven't had a chance to work with you in the past. Turned on your audio. It may take a second or two for it to show up. All right, not hearing anything from Vivian quite yet. Okay, she says hi. So everybody else can read, I'm sure. And Aaron, turning on your audio. Feel free to type something in the chat box or respond to me. What I'm going to do in and out of these group coaching calls is I'll turn on your audios. I'll also be reading the text, and then a portion of this will be based upon some content that I want to share with you. Then it'll be open format in the future. So, all right. Not hearing anything from Aaron. Doesn't mean that they're not there. It just could be that they're not on a device that they can chat on, or they're in an area where they can't talk. So, well, it is 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. It's 2 o'clock where I'm at in the world. Out of curiosity, where's everybody from? If you put your current city and country into the chat box, or just city's probably fine. I'll recognize it. So Sandy's in Liverpool, UK. Hey, Aaron. Marlon's in Lowell, Massachusetts. Vivian's in Washington, D.C. So we've got some other people jumping on here. Anderly and BB. Aaron's in Philadelphia. If you're just signing into this webinar, why don't you go ahead and do me a favor and put your location and your city. Just out of curiosity, I like to see where people are from. I'm currently I'm in Santiago, Chile, at the other end of the world, and for some people, others, they're obviously the other end of the world for the Chileans. But I've been here for the past 10 months, and one of the things that I've been working on is starting a business here. You would not believe the bureaucracy and the number of hoops that you have to jump through as a foreigner starting a business in this country. But what I'm bringing to the marketplace here is essentially what I'm going to be sharing with you guys if you choose to participate in these training events. What I see is a direct correlation between personal development, professional development, and business development. What I believe we all have the opportunity to do is to work on ourselves, and I believe it's more than an opportunity. I believe it's a responsibility. But we have the opportunity to work on ourselves, take what we've learned, and apply it to various niches, or help other people to make their way on the personal development path. Now, it takes various forms. Not everybody, has to do the NLP coaching gig. Obviously, there are countless ways to bring value to the marketplace. And what I believe is that as you work on yourself, you become more valuable as an employee. You become more valuable as a business owner. And it creates a different level of responsibility where you are actually participating in the formation of the world. Now, there are certain people that believe that the course of the world is out of their control. I prefer to believe differently, and I'll use the instance of an individual such as Mahatma Gandhi, who was able to organize people that in a way that completely revolutionized what was occurring in India. And they were able to take back their country from the British. I believe that many of you probably know that some of my background, I originally started in advertising and marketing. And what I was really curious to know was why the teachers, the professors in the classes that I was taking would tell me, try changing the message, change the words a little bit, change the images that are being used in an advertisement, or the way that I'm marketing the way that a marketing campaign is being conducted, and you'll get different results. But they couldn't tell me what to change it to. They couldn't tell me why to change it to. It was just a haphazard mix of experimentation. Now, I believe that within large marketing firms and advertising firms, obviously there were psychologists, and that's one of the things that I've noticed. A fair number of psychologists when I've been out networking. And the majority of them are working for multinational corporations. And what are they doing? Well, they're doing group studies. They're doing case research in terms of what does it take to cause people to make buying decisions. So what I like to believe, and you're free to choose whatever you want to believe, but what I like to believe is that we have the capacity to filter communication. We have the capacity to change our paradigm based upon the outcomes that we desire to achieve. And in some ways, that's kind of like imagination or pretending. But in other ways, if you don't choose to do that, somebody else is making those choices for you, or another organization. Maybe it's political, maybe it's religious, maybe it's a business organization, but they're making those decisions for you, and they have proven that human behavior is very pliable and also very predictable. And so, what I see with the personal development work is it brings the individual to a point of personal responsibility. And that personal responsibility, I personally, my political position, I'm very open about these things. My political position is very, I lean towards a libertarian sort of party, and almost in a way, I favor some of the ideals or the concepts, the philosophy of anarchism. And when I say anarchism, the conditioning that most people have in their minds is people spraying white anarchy or black anarchy signs on the side of a building, the A with the circle, and running around in masks and doing a lot of harm. And I don't think it's like that. What the term actually means when you look into it is it means without rulers. It doesn't mean without rule, it means without rulers, that you are able to govern yourself. Now, what I've noticed with human behavior is that for many people, they will only do the bare minimum, the basics to just get along. So that happens in professional settings where people will just do the bare minimum to get by in their jobs. It happens with, I'm walking on, coals here perhaps, but I would say my position is it happens within religion. That if you the only reason why you're a good person is because, let's say, like in Judeo-Christian religions, is it because you don't break the Ten Commandments, but if those Ten Commandments didn't exist, you would do them, then, what do you actually believe there? Do you need those kind of rules to tell you? And do you need those rules because you lack empathy? Because you lack foresight and hindsight, and you're unable to determine what's happening in the future if people live in a certain manner. So what I see with personal development is it is a call to a higher personal level of integrity. And I can't determine what that integrity is for you, but yeah, I'm looking at some of the notes here, and so I just want to talk about that. It goes back to exactly what Vivian says, that change yourself to change the world. If you want to see the world as a different place, then you've got to change your behavior, your belief system, your actions. And I really believe that in this day and age, and this is kind of my political position, and I agree with Angeli there, that that the anarchy is not necessarily the best synonym, but what I believe is that in this day and age, it's more powerful to vote for your money, to vote with your money, than it is to vote for a specific politician or a party. Because what would happen, just to use the instance of a worldwide strike on one of the largest corporations, Coca-Cola. If people stopped drinking Coca-Cola or purchasing Coca-Cola products for a day or a week, that would be a serious statement. So we have this ability to participate in what I like to refer to as conscious capitalism. And it really comes out of personal development, where I believe that you start down this path, and one of the things that you realize is that to be completely independent or free from the ties of others, that does require a way of understanding how to exist in our current economy. So you've got to figure out a way to either be a better employee, to be a smarter employee, or to do something that is your own, to create your own business or your own products or your own services. And for many people, I think that that's something that's a far-fetched dream. Like, well, I'm just not business oriented. I'm not like that. But I think that if you start to work backwards and you start to consider what can happen if you follow through with your personal development and you begin to work on your weaknesses, your strengths, your fears, your hopes, your aspirations, etc., you'll start to find that there have been events in your life that if you want to, you can assign meaning to those events and you can choose that those are the things that you wish to champion. I'll give you an example. When I was young, 5, 6 years old. This is actually kind of embarrassing, but I failed the first grade. I don't know who fails the first grade, but I failed the first grade because I could not read. And over the course of the following summer, I was left alone. For the most part, I had a younger brother, but we grew up in the country. I'm a country boy. And one of the things that happened is we had to go to a babysitter's because both my parents worked. There was nothing to do at this babysitter's or childcare. There was nothing. There were some books on the shelf. And I picked up one of these books out of sheer boredom. This was probably day 2 or 3. I had nothing to do. And I started to look through these pictures in these books. And what then intrigued me were some of these pictures and the illustrations, and I started to figure out what some of these words were, and I started to piece it together. Within the course of a year, I taught myself how to read, and I had finished the entire Chronicles of Narnia. And for me, that was a very powerful moment where it was this weakness that I initially encountered that turned into a strength. And the little kid that fails first grade now has his master's degree and does training and teaching and other things. And so I think that all of us have these little stories of the personal accomplishment or that thing that we had to overcome. And if we go too far with it on one side, it becomes a weakness. Like we always go back to that. Like it's very easy for me to be stuck in my head. And then the other side of it is if we just use it every once in a while, or we rely upon it as a strength, we can take that knowledge, we can take that information, we can parlay it out into other elements of our life. And so for me, one of the experiences has been getting out of my head, because that was the safe spot. But it was also that safe spot because it originated from that insecurity and that the overwhelm of not being able to cope with the world at that time. So yeah, we all have these experiences in life. And what I want to share with you is just a brief overview before we kick into the coaching side of it. Can everybody see these slides all right? On my screen, they're a little bit condensed. Let me know. Okay, good. I do have a smaller screen here. So personal development is not a new concept. I think the terminology is new. It probably goes back to Earl Nightingale, who's been dubbed one of the fathers or grandfathers of personal development. But what we see here is the outline of the 10 ox herding wood prints. These originated from Asia, and what they do is they illustrate the personal path of an individual who is self-actualizing. And for the sake of space, I've had to overlap these a little bit, but they're very interesting. If you were to go to Wikipedia and look at them, you'd be able to see that you'd be able to see the images in their fullness. But it starts out with the average person just going through their life, and that's the very top left print. And he has no clue that that there are any problems other than those problems that are always external, right? It's the world is happening to him. He's kind of a victim of chance and chaos and everything else. And then one day he happens to see these prints on the ground. That's the second slide, or the second wood print. And these animal prints are there, but he's never seen this animal before. It's an ox, obviously. And then the next day he spots the ox out of the corner of his eye, and that's kind of that waking up moment. And I think if you're into my work, you've listened to my audio programs, you've done coaching with me, we're probably on a similar page here where that waking up process is like waking up from a dream. You realize that your identity has been borrowed and based mostly off of your past. You've been following rules that your parents may have followed, or a church told you to do, or a synagogue, or something else. Some sort of religious institution told you that this is the right way to live. You had a predefined career path, and your career was something that would later become your identity. And for a long time ago, more than 10 years ago, I worked in the mortgage business for about 3 years, and it was horrible. It was a great sales experience, and being a completely 100% commission experience, but my identity was suffering from that because I saw these people in that career path, and they had completely identified with that position, that role. And I mean, there were people that were driving around, and of course, this was during the real estate boom before the bust. And there were people driving around that they would have mortgage broker on their license plate of their car, and they'd wear these little lapel pins and things like that. And I was just going, oh my God, I don't want to be that for the rest of my life. And I was about 25, 24, 25, and so I was able to make a transition and start going to grad school. But you have this wake up moment where you realize and you look around that most people are following a predetermined path. They didn't choose it. They didn't choose their identity. Their identities are based off of their personal history, and in most cases, those identities are formed from their negative experiences, the things that their friends teased them about, the problems that they had, their relationships with their parents, and that past then projects itself into the future. And so, what happens in these wood prints here is you see the individual who encounters, and there are different translations and understandings of what these wood prints mean, but the individual encounters his higher self, his true self, his soul calling, his in some cases his ego, his body. It's going to be whatever you project onto that. But he has the experience in the fourth slide of grasping a hold of this thing and realizing that it is separate from himself. It is not the same. And so the following slides, 5 and 6, it's that process of going into your body. And for me, when I was roughly 25, 26, I started doing a lot of yoga, and that woke up my body. I mean, there would be times where I would be lying in bed at night trying to sleep, and my body would be tingling, and I would have sensations in my legs, my back, my feet that I just never had before. And it was this process of actually integrating with my physical body, but at the same time, my mind was changing. And that goes to the 6th slide, or 7th slide, and the 8th slide, and that is that merger where you start to become one with whatever it was that you were resisting, or you were trying to find it, or you were unsure of whether or not it existed. And yeah, it's exactly what Vivian wrote there, finding your true self. And I believe that we have this opportunity through personal development to not only to find your true self, but to determine what you want to be. And when you choose what your primary purpose is, it's a mixture of discovering it and choosing it because it resonates at a deep core level with you where, wow, everything that I've experienced has prepared me for this moment. And when you have that, it's like this flash for some people. For others, it's probably a feeling. Others, it may just sound right. But whatever it is, it's a complete experience. And it's that experience that then frees you to take it to the marketplace. And you go there, and that's the very last slide, because it creates a sensation of peace, which is slide number 9. Slide 8 is obviously the individual and the ox become one. But slide 10, it means that you go back, and you go back at a higher level to the marketplace. And the marketplace is where everything happens. That's where, I think that people get confused sometimes, and they look at that and they go, well, I don't want to work in an industry, or I don't want to do this or that. Art is the biggest marketplace. Look at Hollywood. I mean, that's huge, and it controls the minds of millions of people around the planet. So you can affect people through music, literature, movies, digital products. There are countless opportunities out there that can be resolved or pursued challenges that can be resolved by just looking at the problems that are suffered by society, the problems that are happening in our world, our economy. And that's where it leads me to the second stage. Most people find themselves in a career or some sort of job role for some part of their lives. And what I believe here is you have the opportunity to live with intention. You can choose to learn everything you possibly can to become the best that you can in that profession, in that position, and then transition out of it. Now, I don't know if you guys have read Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I'm assuming that probably most of you have. Maybe you hate it, maybe you like it. I think that his story is good because he also talks about the personal development training, mental toughness, the things that you've got to do to go against the grain of what everybody else is doing, what they're conditioned to do, and then move forward with that. And one of the things that he recounts in his story was working for a printer company. The name of it, what was it? The name of it slips my mind off, right now. But he worked for one of the premier printer companies during the 70s and 80s, and they had excellent job training. And that was one of the reasons, or sales training, and that was one of the reasons why he decided to stay with that company. But you can tell that in his lifetime, he's got a best-selling book. He's an incredible salesperson, and there's nothing wrong with sales. I think that one of the habits that we get into, or one of the mindsets that people possibly get into, is that if they work for themselves, they're going to have to sell, they're going to have to manage money, they're going to have to do advertising, marketing, et cetera, in addition to developing a product or a service. It sounds really overwhelming, but once you start to break it down, you break it down into its bite-sized components, you'll find that selling is much easier when you believe in yourself. And I know that sounds probably cliche, but there are strategies and techniques that you can do to enhance your beliefs about yourself. And if you have a product or a service that you're going to the marketplace and you believe that it truly solves a problem, then it becomes a matter of managing objections. And there's some training that I have in mind for leadership development, sales confidence, sales negotiations, sales objection mastery, and some other concepts in here that I believe that regardless of whether or not you are an employee, because in this day and age, every single employee is a salesperson. You're selling to keep your job. You're selling to ensure that you can keep a company profitable. And if you don't directly work in sales, I really highly encourage you to do that. Even I'm a proponent of network marketing. If you're selling a reputable product or service, and there's the full spectrum there of garbage products, garbage companies, to decent and high quality products and companies. But I believe that in your lifetime, if you have the opportunity to do it, you should do one day of door-to-door sales and one day of cold calling, because it teaches you a lot about human behavior, human interactions, and it teaches you a lot about yourself, because now all of a sudden you have a real rejection scenario. So everybody has got to do that, because what happens if you discover, let's say, your primary purpose? What do you have to do? You're going to have to share it with other people. What happens when people don't want it? Well, you're going to have to learn to manage their objections. You're going to have to learn to identify what it is that they want. You're going to have to figure out what their greatest pain is and give them something of value. And you're going to have to develop rapport and trust along the way. So the last component of these workshops, these webinars that I have in mind, is the technical side. I've been doing online sales, online business since 2007. I did not know how to create a website. I did not know what a host was, what a server was. I did not know anything. And the fortunate thing for you is that it has become much less complicated, and there are certain ways that you can maximize your exposure online using. One of those is search engine optimization, and there are two sides to that. There are on-site ways to ensure that your website can be found on the internet. That's one of the biggest problems that online marketers have, is nobody can find them. And so let's imagine here. Let's just say that you have a concept. You want to share an idea, an experience, a belief, something of yours, and you want to share it in the form of a digital book. Well, PDF. You can create a website. You can put your book onto Amazon.com, where they're going to sell it at wholesale. They're going to, essentially rape you on the price of it. And it's a graphic word, but that's what it's like in many ways. And you're going to open up that community to all of the negative reviews, or you're going to open up that product to all of the negative reviews from probably a large percentage of those are going to come from your competitors or perceived competitors. So you've got to figure out a way to manage that and get in front of the traffic, so you can, one, sell your product at a higher premium so that you actually got the revenues to keep going, to have an income that you can live off of, and also have an income that you can use to expand your business or to write more books in this scenario. So a lot of this goes back to understanding how to properly structure a website so that it can qualify to be found and be listed in Google, and then how to use social media, how to use Facebook advertising, how to use Google pay-per-click, and other ways to drive traffic, paid traffic, and also organic traffic to your website. So what I see here is I see 4 components. Obviously, there's open coaching, and that's what we're going to talk about for the rest of today. There is the personal development element, where I want to share with you, essentially what I'm doing is I've taken the core concepts out of my men's program, and a lot of the feedback came that, essentially what I discovered with this is my men's program is my primary purpose. It's something that is my calling. And what I found is that most women were more interested in it than guys. And I would run the idea by a guy, just talking to him casually, saying, well, what do you believe about yourself? What's your identity? And kind of I get this deer in the headlight look. I would take the same questions, same kind of concepts, and I'd run them by women, and the women would just light up. And they'd be like, oh my God, this is for men? Well, you got to talk to my brother. I've got 2 friends that need this, blah, blah, blah. And it was just amazing to see the insight. And I think that there's that perspective there where perhaps on one side of the equation is women do seem to look at men as a potential or, ongoing self-help program, kind of like restoring a house or something like that, which I personally don't have a problem with it, because that's the field that I work in, and personal change is something that I love and embrace. I always want to figure out something new, a way to improve myself. What I think it comes across to as men in many cases is I'm not good enough. And that's a difficult thing to hear, because we hear that a lot. You can look at business or media, and it's the same thing. I would say that men, in terms of probably power, personal power, money, and then physique, would be the triggers for most men. And then I would say that for women, the triggers that media tends to push would be physique, probably 80% of the time, physique, age, and then personal power would be third. And that's just my own personal projection on how I see things broken down. But with these training seminars that I have in mind, weekly training, 1 hour for each of these quadrants, 1 hour for group coaching, 1 hour for personal development, 1 hour for professional development, and then 1 hour for the business development training. All of these things will be action oriented, and we'll spend half the time I'll spend half the time presenting the topics, the concepts, and then the remainder of the time we can have open questions, open forum, where you'll have assignments to do, and then all of these events will be recorded and they'll be available on my training site for active members. So That, in a nutshell, is what I have in mind. And the rest of this time, we've got another 30 minutes here for today. I want to open it up for group coaching for you. And my question is, obviously you can put your scenario into the chat box, and then if you want to, we can turn on your audio. Everybody has different internet connections. I'm sure that my internet connection kind of comes in and out too, just like everybody else's on webinars. But I want to know what's happening in your life. What is an issue, a challenge, an opportunity? Typically, what I think most of our personal challenges come down to is state management, something that we want to do or something that we want to experience differently, but we don't know how to change our physiology and do it. So, who wants to go first? It's going to be first come, first serve. And whoever can type in a situation or a scenario that they want to improve, and it's something, here's how I want you to qualify it. I want you to think about something that you can take action with today, something that maybe you've been procrastinating or putting off or just haven't been able to make a decision. Sonia, I'm not good enough. A lifelong challenge to solve. Is that your question, Sonia? Is that the issue that you want to work on? I'm watching the chat box here. Okay, it's more of an awareness. Okay. So for Sonia, this is something that I believe that we all come across. And my question for you is, how do you know? I kind of have some indicators here. You put it in quotations. So I'm guessing that it's verbal. It's auditory. It's something that you're either saying to yourself or you're hearing it. It's either in your voice and you're saying it out loud, or you're hearing it in your head with your voice or the voice of someone else. Is it any of those three? Those are my guesses, obviously. While Sonia's writing her response or thinking about it, Aaron, becoming better at cold calling. I'm going to jump around from topics here, from topic to topic, just because of the format that we've got here. And if you want to put on your voice, that's totally fine, because we can actually interact a lot quicker. Okay, cold calling. Here's what for Aaron, really quickly. How would you know if you are better at cold calling? What would be different? And then Sonia, okay, how right you are. How'd you find the clue? The clue was you put it in quotations. People quote things that they hear or that they've said in the past. So you hear it from your mother. We can use some real basic NLP on this. What I want you to do is imagine, first of all, identify where you hear it from your mother's voice. Is it stereo? Does that mean on both sides of your head, right side, left side, back behind you, in front of you? Where's the location? So back behind you. So what I want you to do is move your mother's voice down beneath your feet. So it's coming up from down beneath you, like it's something that you've actually overcome. And then slow it down. Hear it very slow, just like, I don't know your age, but if you recall a cassette tape, imagine that if you're to slow that cassette tape down so it says, you're not good enough. And then on a scale of 1 to 10, how impactful or how powerful is that once you've moved it beneath your feet and slowed it down? Okay, so Aaron, I'm going to jump to Aaron while Sonia works on that. Here's what I want you to do, Sonia, while you're running through that in your mind. I want you to move the distance of that voice further and further away from you, wherever it sounds less powerful. And that voice has been very powerful for you, And what we're going to do in the future is or just in a little bit here, we're going to change it because it has its impact, right? If you've been hearing you're not good enough your whole life and it comes from your mother's voice, well, let's change the content. The context works. So I want you to take the phrase of you're not good enough coming from your mother's voice, move it down beneath you, further and further away until it sounds as though it's something that you could easily just walk away from or walk over, step over it. Now, while you do that, I also want you to think of something that you would like to hear that is motivating you. So it could be, I am good enough. That might be powerful, but I think that there could possibly be something that's more powerful, even more powerful, that you'd want to hear. So write that down and then rehearse that a few times, hearing it in your mother's voice, but a powerful context, positive context. And we'll come back to you and go ahead and put it in the chat what you've come up with. So with Aaron, we want to be able to make sales calls without hesitating or putting it off altogether. How do you know who you're going to call next? I'm guessing that you're working off of a list. What's your process? Okay, so you're going off of a list. What happens when you see the list? If you slow it down into slow motion for me, you see the list, you start to dial. Do you have a script that you're working with? And then while Aaron's working on that, okay, I've got a script. Is your script memorized? Your script is not memorized, Aaron. Okay, so how many scripts do you have? One script. Okay, so in marketing, there's this concept called split testing. It means you run different advertisements by different people, or you change the way that your marketing campaigns are being conducted or advertisements are being conducted. Can you generate 3 different scripts today? But the very first thing that you need to do is you need to identify what it is that you're selling, what is your target client, or who is your target client? What is that person's biggest pain? I want you to create something that's called a perfect avatar. I want you to identify exactly who your clients are that you want to sell to. So if you wrote appointment setting, I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. Okay, Steven, I see that you're with Luxon right now. How are you guys doing? His question is handling objections. We talked a little bit about that yesterday. Luxon or Steven, can you write specifically what the scenario might be and give me a little bit more to work with? And then Vivian Chow, letting go of the idea of improvement, being curious all the time, and feeling excited about the idea of expansion. Amen, sister. I don't mean to, I just say that lighthearted comedy. I love that. Yeah, expand, expand, expand. Somebody asked me one time, are you happy all the time? And I said, no, obviously there are things that piss me off, things that make me, and when I say, I don't mean make me, it's I allow myself to be because I'm aware that it's happening. And I don't think it's necessarily bad. Some of my most inspired writing or work has come from a moment of frustration. I think it's understanding how to use the emotions and use those as fuel. An example could be the emotion of anger is one that I think has most nice people caught up, really twisted up. I would say that to go back to the biblical example of, I don't know if you're religious or not, but the biblical example of Jesus with the money changers in the temple, and Jesus Christ got pissed off, and he threw people out of the temple, supposedly according to the story, because what he noticed is what he valued was being defiled. Now, obviously, it's a story. I don't know if it was true or a metaphor. That's my objective perspective on it. But if you have the most holy, innocent, according to Christianity, that was God incarnate, who is able to experience anger, and that anger or frustration or rage drove him to action. Then I believe it goes back to that personal responsibility. Can you experience that and channel it in a way that it doesn't hurt anybody else or yourself? I think it's perfectly fine. And so that idea of improvement might also, when you start to think about being excited about expansion, it might be also fully encompassing the spectrum of human emotions, knowing that you can appropriately channel it. And there's nothing wrong with feeling what some people I think confuse to be depression, but maybe melancholy. I believe that you could find a lot of powerful, moving, emotional music that comes out of that spirit or that emotional state of melancholy, because it's such a profound experience that we all have from time to time. So it's just being able to channel that and channel into expansion. And when you experience something, make it go forward. Okay, so Aaron sets appointments for a salesperson. Okay, so the salesperson then, obviously, they're selling a product or a service. You're setting the appointment. You're going to have to split test your scripts. You're going to need to rewrite the script. You're going to have to identify what it is that your prospect, in general, what their greatest pain is. So what I want you to do is I want you to write down a list of options in terms of questions that you can use to lead them. I don't know the context of the sales, so what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to identify: is it a mental pain? Is it a physical pain? Is it a monetary pain? Is it conceptual? Once you can move them through one of those scenarios, what I want you to do, and this is kind of an older strategy, but I find it to be effective, is set up your questions so that you ask them yes-based questions. So they answer yes. You've probably heard this before in sales training. Now, you're going to need to experiment with these scripts, and you're going to have to write them out, and you're going to have to memorize them, because what happens is if you have a memorized script, that means that you're free to ad-lib. When you're free to ad-lib, you have possibilities, you have opportunities. When you're reading a script, you're probably going to have a really hard time, and it's going to cause you a great deal of anxiety. So here's what I want you to do. We can always set up, a personal coaching call on this if you want to, and that's just for any of these scenarios here, obviously. But what I want you to do is write out your script examples, 3 different scripts. You have to identify who the prospect is, what their prospect avatar is. That means, male, female, demographics, buying behaviors, whatever it is that you believe these people have. And you're going to have to also identify how qualified are these individuals on your list. Are you just cold calling like out of a yellow pages or white pages rather? I don't know if it's business or personal. Or are these pre-qualified individuals? Like, are you buying leads? So I'm really hesitating on, Aaron's saying, I'm really hesitating on making the calls. Why would I hesitate when I'm an excellent salesperson when I get inbound calls for myself? Cold calling. Okay. It's one thing to be reactionary, which means that you take whatever the universe gives to you. You have no control over it. To be proactive about it is entirely different. So that means that you've got to be a force in the universe. You've got to be a force in the world. That challenges your identity, right? It's easy. I'll use a dating example. This is something that very good-looking men and women don't understand. while they're in their 20s or 30s or 40s per se, just based upon the stereotypical factors that society uses to determine beauty. It's when somebody is used to having people approaching them for interactions, they don't need to do anything. All you have to say is, well, what do you want? It's like being on a car lot. You're selling Lamborghinis, you're on a car lot, and you've got people coming in. There's a few pre-qualifying questions, primarily, do you have enough money to pay for this Lamborghini? What color do you want? Do you want to buy it now or when? And so there's some very basic questions that you have to ask there, because the to that location. So it's very easy to field their questions. For you, you got to be proactive. You got to go out there, which means you have to understand what the target market is. You have to understand their buying behavior. You have to lead them through a series of questions that moves them closer to the objective that you want, which is to set the appointment. So if you don't have a script, you're going to have to write that script. And I encourage you to write 3 scripts minimum, test them, memorize them, and then mix and match them so that you're able to flow between the different scripts and make those scripts based upon different prospect avatars, because I think people are going to have different buying reasons and buying behaviors. Once you know that stuff, I believe that the cold calling function is going to become much easier for you. But that's the critical part right there. If you don't know the technical side, you don't know what you're going to say next. It's like dancing. What happens when the salsa music comes on and you would like to dance, but you don't know the first step? You got to get the first step. All right. Stephen Wright, public speaking. What sort of public speaking are you doing, Stephen? Let's see, you wrote for Lux in here too. You want to feel more confident when selling to a client. What should your mindset be? Luxon, I want you to do this. Just try this for this weekend. I want you to put together your sales pitch, and with the sales pitch that you've got, go out and just try it out on the street. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to get $5 would be good. $1 is okay. But you tell me it's up to your budget. I want you to do this at least 5 times. So it's $25 or $5. It doesn't matter. I want you to go on the street. It doesn't matter where, but find somebody that looks like they would match your demographics for your target market, and tell them, walk up to them with the bill, the dollar bill or the $5 bill in your hand, and say, excuse me, I want to pay you $1 or $5 to listen to my sales presentation. Practice that, because there's a subtle shift there. Maybe it's a profound shift, but there's a subtle shift when you're out there and you're giving somebody something of value. Does that make sense? You're giving them something of value. So when you go into the marketplace and you've got, it's that Tony Robbins thing, he always does that. He's like, you need this one secret that I've got. It's that subtle thing of value that you're carrying. So that is the mind shift. And I believe that when you do that and you practice that, going out there, even if it's just $1, you'll find out that a lot of the time it's not you. It's not the presentation. It's the other person's skepticism which brings up those objections. So you're going to see what their objections are. And I will guarantee you that you will encounter a fair number of people that will refuse the $1 or the $5. So try that out. That's what I want you to try, just in terms of overcoming those that anxiety about that, going to the marketplace. So for Stephen, right, we've got presentations. And Stephen, did you say what sort of presentation they are? Is this a personal presentation? Is it business related? Marlon, believing in myself and acting courageously on that belief, it still takes so much energy, like I'm overcoming incredible inertia. It's like the positive outcomes are always outweighed by negative self-talk. Okay, remember what we did with Sonia with the negative self-talk? I want you to identify what is one of those um, self-talk statements that you hear or say. Is it something that you're actually saying under your breath, or is it something that you're hearing in your head? Oh no, I meant Sonia for Marlon in his self-talk situation. For you, Sonia, it sounded as though that changed dramatically for you. Now, what was your Sonia? What was your statement? The positive context or the positive content that you were going to put in the context of your mother's voice in your head? What was your positive statement? And then Steve Wright, investing. So you're making presentations for investors. Um, what is the win-win scenario for the investors? So obviously they're getting some sort of return on their money, if I'm understanding you correctly. And then if who else is getting who else is benefiting from that investment? Is it you? Is it your business? Is it a cause? Can you give me a little bit more detail? I'm okay. Okay, Sonia, what if you hear it in your mother's voice? I am okay in everything I do. And then make it loud at a comfortable level, but make it louder. And then Marlon, for example, if I make a mistake, I instantly say I'm stupid. Okay. How long have you been doing that, Marlon? My guess is if it's been happening instantaneously, it's been going on for a long time. I want you to go back in your mind's eye to that earliest time that you did it, and about that decision to say I'm stupid. I want you to hear yourself say that was a stupid decision to decide to say that I'm stupid instantaneously. You can laugh about it too. There's that old saying that laughter banishes fear. Stephen Wright. Okay, firm managing portfolio. Okay. Stephen, what differentiates you from the competitors in this arena? It's not product. It's not service in most cases. It's you. It's you. So what are you doing that's different? What is your intention? What is the highest and best that you have in mind for the investors? Sandy Teal, mine is similar to the negative self-talk. So procrastination sets in. It's the voice in my head. Okay. I don't know, Sonia, perhaps I'm seeing your response there. No, I'm not stupid sometimes. That might be out of context. I think I was talking about Marlon in that situation. But for Sandy, my situation is similar to Marlon, the negative self-talk. So procrastination sets in. It's the voice in my head. Sandy, what would you do without that voice in your head? Then Vivian is asking, at the beginning of the call, you mentioned that words are important. Do you have power words to share at this moment? My power words are courage and integrity. Um, Doing what is right for yourself might be lonely from time to time, but you can you can power through it, because what I have in mind is it's bigger than just my lifetime. It's bigger than just me. It affects thousands of people, and it changes the face of the planet. And maybe that's something that you can all borrow with what you're doing, because when I understand from those of you that I've worked with personally, and those of you that you've shared a little bit about what you're doing, when you start to extrapolate or expand upon whatever it is behind your motivations for working or personal development, it almost always affects other people. You want to be the best that you can be, to use that cliche phrase. You want to be the best you can be so that you can experience the best in others, and that you can inspire others to greater things. Because if you're the best that you can be, and that's obviously, it's a process, it's not a static thing. And if you're alone, what difference does it make? So that vision seems like it's always more powerful when it encompasses other people that follow your example. Okay. Okay, Stephen, I have a problem convincing clients to pay more for an actively managed portfolio. Convincing and persuading. Are there clients out there that want to pay more for an actively managed portfolio? They have to understand the benefits of it. So it sounds like if you're convincing, you're selling them on the features. What are the benefits? People don't mind paying for benefits, but paying for features means that they're going to go out in the marketplace and see who offers the most features, and they'll probably end up at Walmart. Angela, you're welcome. Thank you. It's an honor to have you here. Thank you for attending, and I hope to see you in the future trainings. Okay, so Stephen is saying, which offer more return based upon the market, but most clients are not interested in paying more. In that situation, if it offers a higher return, then it's a mathematical equation, right? Obviously, there's some projections in there, but you got to go to the benefits of that. So, what are their fears in paying more? What is that pain that it causes them? And then what is the offset of that? How do you illustrate the benefits that they gain? And how do you manage that objection up front and tell them what they're going to do? Tell them, say, most, and you could do it in third person, say most people have, a fear or concern about doing X, Y, Z because they think it's going to cost them more money. But in the long run, it actually costs them less and it makes them more money. Here's why. Stephen, that helps? I think that's the major thing. You got to address it up front. Handle their objections up front, because they're really telling you what they want in those objections when you master those objections. So courage and integrity. Sandy, the first hypnotherapy MP3 I ever wrote was Michael's How to Stop Procrastination. Yeah, that one kicks my butt still. So that is the biggest thing. If you can get beyond procrastination and what it really does in that specific MP3 or program, it's an NLP technique. It's called the Dickens pattern or the Christmas Carol pattern. And I don't know if you remember the movie or the book, The Christmas Carol, where the ghost of, what is it, Futures Past? I don't recall. Takes Scrooge out into the future and shows him what happens if he doesn't change his behavior. What it does is it creates a very, very strong away from motivation in your body. It causes most people's physiology to just go, I can't do that, which means it's actually less painful to stop procrastinating and go do what you need to do. So in all of your circumstances, for everyone here that has mentioned something, I want you to run through that right now in your mind's eye. What happens if you don't change this behavior and it continues for another 5 years? What have you done? Let's say that you've procrastinated for another 5 years. Let's say that you didn't close sales prospects for another 5 years. Well, you'd probably be out of a job. Go out 5 years in time with that limiting behavior, that negative behavior, and notice, what does it do? For most of you, it probably creates a very bleak picture that has a lot of outcomes you don't want and some really bad physiological sensations. So what materials do I have about handling objections? That's actually going to be in one of the professional development training. I'm going to do an objection mastery course. So that'll be something in the future. So, Sandy, okay, one last thing here. We're out of time, but Sandy, otherwise I'm screwed though. I'm getting pretty annoyed with myself. What I would do, Sandy, for you, if you've been putting stuff off and you've got self-talk going on, if I recall correctly, not being good enough, or being stupid, I think that was the one. You can combine those actually. If you keep going out into the future and procrastinating, and you can look forward to all of those days waking up and thinking, hearing in your head, I'm so stupid, or some variant of that, that's pretty painful. So it's going to be a lot easier to go out, do what you need to do, and fail at it. Fail at it. Just fail. There's nothing wrong with failing, as long as you fail forward. Yes, EFT. Vivian, EFT is great. EFT is great for you handling internal objections. I think what the context was for people to handle objections within a sales context. So I don't think you want to use EFT at that point. You'd be like, hold on, I'm going to tap on your your acupressure points. So, but yeah, to use EFT on yourself, that's a very powerful way to use acupressure. So, Stephen, this will be available for review. I'll just post it below the webinar video on the same page, so you can always come back here and you can watch this video. And thank you, Sonia. We barely did all the hidden points. Yeah, I really hope that you guys will participate in this in the future. Like I said, I'm going to be charging $10 per each of these weekly training, and then if you got it'll be under a weekly renewing membership, so it'll be $40 for each of them. And I really believe that you're going to get way more out of that, because most people have similar problems, similar challenges, and you can learn from each other. And this is going to be a live interaction, so I really believe that we can do a lot here together. So. Marlon, start writing those damn books. Just start doing it. Just do it. Doesn't matter. All right. So you guys, we're out of time for today, but next week I will follow up, and I'll send out some emails, obviously, to my mailing list and let them know about the path forward. But I'm really excited for this. It's been an honor working with you guys. There's a lot to learn, a lot to just integrate and to move forward on. I've got a lot of great ideas in the pipeline, so I really hope that you guys will be on board. So, all right, take care, and if you have any if you have any positive feedback, or I'm seeing it here in the chat, but if you would be willing to share that on the Facebook page too, that'd be great. It helps other people to to manage some of their objections and their concerns about buyer's remorse. So, all right, take care of you guys.